So this first shot catches my eye, and this one's a little bit tough. There's a massive exposure difference with the sun coming in through the window. What I'm going to do is drab on. What I'm going to do is go ahead and make a cut here. And rather than dragging on a new Lumetri color and bringing down the highlights, what that would be doing is that would work, but we're going to be combating the exposure increase that this one's giving and then reversing it by trying to push it up. So in this kind of scenario, for this specific type of problem, let's go ahead and cut our adjustment layer so that we're only affecting this image. Let's bring down that exposure a few points, and let's bring down our highlights, let's say -30. And we don't need to boost our shadows a whole lot more. So let's bring that down to 10. Let's hit play. Oof, much better. Okay, great. This one didn't need a big of that. This one did not need that much of a boost. It already had pretty of. Oh man, I can't talk. So this one really didn't need that much of a boost. It already had a lot of light going on. So let's continue. This is looking nice. Okay. So let's create a cut here. And this one needs a lot of help. So I'm going to bring up the exposure. I'm going to bring up the highlights. Okay. That's looking way better. We can even bring up these highlights. Let's go to 100. Now you can see something that's starting to happen here. When I'm increasing the exposure on this image, it's very subtle, but there's a tan, light purple that we have in the whites. So the white balance was pretty different. And the coloring in these two rooms, it's the same colored walls, but these lights are a different color temperature. The daylight and these warm lights mixing into this room is creating very tan walls. This is creating very almost a purple, light purple. Because of the lighting is different in here with this green, almost yellowish. This is more of a green light that we have coming off here. So that's a bit of an issue. It's not the end of the world, but what we want to do is to kind of try to blend these colors a little bit better so that we have more of a cohesive look. So quick way to do that is I'm going to bring up the temperature. Let's bring it up to 4 points. Okay. A little bit better. If that's not doing the trick, what we can do is go down to our creative tab and we can selectively change the color of the highlights. So the bright parts of the frame are now getting pushed to the blue. And we can selectively change our shadow, which is changing the color of the dark parts of the frame selectively. So it takes what you have up here a step further and allows for you to only change specific parts of the frame depending on their quality of light, depending on their amount of exposure. So because we want to get this a little bit more tan, let's see how it looks if we bring up the tan. I'm pushing this more to the yellow on the highlights. So the highlights would be walls. These would be bright, these would be dark. So if I were to change the shadow on this image, I would be changing the color of the dark parts. So that plant would start to go blue and all the other dark parts. So that's looking better. Let's bring in even a little bit more tan. Okay. And a little bit more highlight because this is still looking a little bit dull for my eyes. So let's go to 120. Even boost this up to 1.9. Okay, that's good enough for now. Let's keep moving. Okay, we have these. So this looks good, but we have this one that's a little bit too tan. So I'm going to bring the temperature down, -5. And I'm going to boost. It leaves a little bit more light, so I'm going to go 1.2. Okay. And what I'm also seeing here is there's a lot of saturation in this one compared to this. So I like the colors and the amount of saturation of this one. This is looking too saturated. So sometimes you actually want to bring your saturation down to match some of your other images. Okay, let's try that. Ooh, much better. Okay. So before we had it like this to that. So it was very yellow to a nice white. Now we have it nice white across both of these images. Okay, this all looks great. Okay, and we need some help here. So let's go and let's bring up the exposure, 1 point. Bring up the highlights, let's say 30 points, and boost the shadows, let's say 30 points as well. Before, after. Okay. So what I'm seeing is I like the exposure of these two bathroom shots, these two, but it gets a little bit dark and a little bit dull with these bedroom shots. So I'm going to create two cuts. I'm going to go here and I'm going to continue to boost. Let's go to the highlights to 70. Okay. And let's go here and let's do the same. Great. Now we're to the outdoor pool area. Let's bring up the exposure, 0.5. And the highlights 60. And the way I'm deciding, how much to bring these up is I've been doing this for a while. So as soon as I look at the image, I got a feeling for the amount of increase or decrease in whatever parameter it's going to need. And you will start to develop that same exact sensitivity. So now these are starting to pop. Now I'm going to increase our saturation, bring that up. Okay. Looking good. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's our transition scene that we're gonna get to. Okay. Now we have all this nighttime stuff, and this is dark. Oh, geez. So we're gonna bring up the exposure 1.5. And let's bring up the highlights, let's say 70. And now, this last shot, it has an overlay under it, or a graphic under it. So we're not gonna be able to pop over this adjustment layer because it's gonna affect this. So for example, if I drag this adjustment layer on top, you see what we're doing? We love, we really enjoy, right? We have a perfect exposure, everything on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the filter on this adjustment layer, go directly to this clip and hit paste so that we're not going to be affecting what's underneath it, which is our title card. Now this can use some more exposure and it's a little bit purple. So I'm going to counteract that by bringing down the tint, which boosts the greens. The more I bring down the tint, the more it's going to take out the purple. We just want to do a little bit, -4. Great. So now we have the exposures. Everything is equalized. We've done our color correction across our entire editing timeline. And in the next video lesson, I'm going to show you how to do a really cool custom transition between these two similar shots from day to night. We have this part of our edit where we have two shots that I filmed that are very similar. And we want to do some kind of cool transition between the two. So I'm going to kind of explain this in an easy way that we can do inside of Premiere, or maybe a few different ways to do it inside of Premiere. And then we'll explain a more complex way to do it inside of After Effects. So let's first start with creating some space for this transition. So I'm going to move up our adjustment layer. And we want to start with overlaying these two shots. So I'm going to go ahead and drag out some time of both shots, bring the intro of the shot longer, and bring the outro of the shot below it longer as well. Now I want to overlay these two shots as symmetric, no, not symmetrically, but as closely as possible before trying to create our transition. So what that's going to entail is basically right now we have this shot. So right now we have these two shots, and you can see this part of the image, one shot is a little bit earlier than the following shot. So I'm going to go ahead and select the top shot, and I'm going to start scooting this over until it's as closely synced up to the shot below it as possible. Okay. So you kind of can see the ghosting of how these shots are overlaid. It looks pretty similar. It really does. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like with just a overall crossfade. And I'm going to go ahead and take our adjustment layer because right now you can see this pop of color change right there is happening because we have two different adjustment layers that were affecting two different clips separately, but now we're blending these clips together. That's not going to work. So I'm going to take this adjustment layer, copy its filter, paste it onto our bottom track, delete the adjustment layer that we don't need anymore, take the adjustment layer that was affecting this clip, now it's affecting both, and I'm going to copy its color filter, paste it onto our clip, delete that, and now we don't have that pop of exposure that's messing up our transition. Okay, so that's not even like terrible. This is like kind of a cool thing that if most people see that, they'd be like, whoa, how did he do that? Right? So that's the basic of basic ways. Okay, now there's a few other things that we can do with masking that we can do in Premiere without having to export things to After Effects. And actually, we can even do a Luma key as well. We're going to be able to fine tune that a little bit more in After Effects, but I want to show you the process in Premiere because we're going to be able to, I'm going to minimize our color correction. Here's our Luma key filter. Now what this is going to do is it's going to basically use different exposures to slowly fade in our image. So you can see it's bringing in the dark parts of the frame and it's using Luma, meaning light, using those different parts of the frame, different light intensities to bring in the image that way versus a fade where you bring in the whole image at once. Right? So let's go ahead and take off our crossfade. And let's go to our Luma filter. Let's go to the beginning of our clip. Let's turn it all the way up. So that means it's not being affected yet. And we're going to hit the stopwatch. And we're going to go to about where we want to finish our transition. We're going to go to 0. And let's hit play. Okay. So you can see it kind of has a more kind of thing. One of the problems with this filter is that it doesn't really start to take effect with this specific image because so much of the image is already dark. It doesn't start to take effect until really late in the process. You can see it's only starting to really engage when it gets to around 10%. So let's go ahead and set the actual starting point, not at 100%, but rather let's try it at 20%. Let's delete our old keyframe, drag that over. So that gives us a much more gradual fade, but the problem is with Premiere, it doesn't allow for you to feather this transition. So we can, try to fix that a little bit by doing a crossfade. Let's see that. Okay, so there's kind of a cool little, unique effect that's going on. I am seeing a pretty big difference in this where the house is located in the frame. Let's see if we can. So what we can do for that is to take our bottom image, scale it up to let's say 110, and let's go ahead and now we have space to move it over. Okay, cool. You see what we just did there? We really made this part of the transition really align perfectly because this is where the eye is going to be. The eye is going to be looking at the bright part of the frame. It's going to be looking towards the center of the frame. And that's where the effect kind of looks the best in this transition. But, I'm not super happy with the way the Luma key thing works in in Premiere. So let's remove that and let's try a different kind of effect.